everybody loves going to the car dealer. Everybody's I just want my car to break down so I can go through the process of buying a new one through a person. No, not so much. People hate that stuff, which is why the idea of auto manufacturers selling direct to the consumer has been popular for quite a while, and more people are looking for that. We buy everything else online. Why shouldn't we be able to do that with our cars? Well, there's a good reason why we shouldn't be able to do that with our cars, because the dealers don't like that. And so they pour money into politicians, and then politicians corruptly give them what they want. And we have a great example of that with Ron DeSantis, who just signed a law that blocks most automakers from using a direct-to-consumer sales model. But it's actually maybe slightly more corrupt than that, because it doesn't block everyone from doing direct to consumers. It allows some, but again, only because he's been heavily lobbied by those manufacturers. So it has a carve out for electric only automakers, meaning that Tesla, as well as Rivian, which has started selling cars fairly recently, Lucid as well, are still allowed to sell their cars directly to consumers without getting a third party dealership involved. But legacy automakers that sell electric vehicles still have to use dealerships. So this is amazing and corrupt in like multiple directions. As we're gonna show you, he and other Republicans in Florida have been heavily lobbied by the car dealer network. So that's why they're doing this at all. But then he also likes Elon Musk. Elon Musk, of course, helped him launch his presidential bid. And so Elon Musk gets to do it. He doesn't have to abide by the other rules. And look, it benefits Rivian and Lucid as well, but they're very small in comparison to Tesla, at least as of right now. So the whole thing, Brett, just seems so corrupt. And it's the sort of thing where, like, maybe this is just me. I don't think it is. Nobody likes this. No regular person would want this. And yet he can do it. He gets paid, and he appears to not be likely to suffer any sort of consequences for it.
Well, this is one of the most fascinating discussions that makes you question your own positions on, question whether there are analogs to your positions on other things. Because no one likes paying more for a television. So you would think that most people would want a global economic setup that lets you pay the least for a television. But a lot of us also want to keep jobs in America. And so we put up protectionist tariffs, which is counter to the thing we all want to do. And so in this situation, like, it would cost you less money, but you're gonna kill jobs in America if you have a globalization approach to the economy. That's not too different from what I can think, and maybe you can open my eyes to ways it's different. To, a way to keep jobs in America of people selling cars is to have these extra setups and protect legacy institutions like the American job, which is technically inefficient, and the dealer, which is technically inefficient. The difference is one raises prices and the other would lower. I guess protecting both raises prices on the average American and makes them do stuff that they don't actually want to do, while protecting jobs that are in America, which it isn't a small industry, the dealers.
I'm glad that you have brought this up, because sometimes on this show we'll reach a point where you will be frustrated with me having apparently said something that from your point of view makes no sense whatsoever. And it is rarer still that I get to feel that exact same way. No, that's not the same thing at all. Look, broad strokes, sure. Arrows point in the directions in those examples. And by the way, I'm not saying like that we shouldn't have a debate about where things are produced and how that affects prices and everything. But the dealer network at this point, if we maintain it just to maintain jobs, and I'm going to guess that the new car sale part of a dealer network is it's not a massive number of jobs. But let's say that it was. Maintaining it just to maintain jobs is an utterly artificial, like, you could just say then, okay, then we're gonna import products from China, but every product that's imported from China, we're gonna set up a new series of big box stores that you have to walk into and buy them there rather than buying them directly. Hey, that'll create jobs. There's all sorts of utterly artificial. That's different.
That's a new thing. I'm saying protecting jobs so you don't sabotage the industry.
I understand that, but the thing is, dealerships might have been needed for people to like learn about cars or whatever back in the 1950s or something. It is simply technologically not necessary. You couldn't have done direct to consumers or whatever. Although to be fair, dealers have been
absolutely could, because you can go find a Tesla in the mall. It's a dealership. It's just run by the manufacturer.
No, I understand what you're saying. Now you can. I'm saying that for the most part, in terms of like direct online sales, it wouldn't have been possible 70 years ago. And the reason you don't have Ford dealers owned by Ford 50 years ago is because the dealers have been doing this sort of getting legislation passed in favor of them for decades and decades.
This is false because
what is false?
Well, just because of commercials. Instead of the internet, you had commercials. You could have called a number to buy the car. They could have put ads in it, and this happens. So as a veteran of the one-time veteran of the automobile advertising industry, if you guys want to watch a dope ass commercial, go watch the Nissan Juke donut action and watch yours truly jump through a window. There are two sets currently. There's two sets of commercials that happen. So you think of the cool commercial with Robert Downey Jr. and some really hot guy in a blue suit jumping through a window. That's put out by Nissan. And then you see the Toyota commercials where it's just people in front of a white background pointing at numbers and going like 4.3% APR financing. That would be great. Those are done by the dealers. But the messaging,
I understand all of it.
And I guarantee you that the car manufacturers in many ways want to take over that industry and consolidate it for themselves and run the whole damn thing. That's what Elon Musk wants to do. And I'm not saying that this is a bad idea. I'm just struggling to justify it for the American job market. And I'm saying that especially as the analog goes toward like protecting manufacturing jobs in America, which if you follow what would make it more efficient would disappear the same way that I think when I walk into a car dealership and I hate life, I do want that to completely disappear.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And again, from 100 miles up, you're talking about efficiencies or whatever, but it is very much like we're not talking about just broad categories. We're talking about you can directly look how much extra are people paying, how much more inconvenience are they having to maintain X number of jobs. If X jobs is 100 million, then sure, you leave it there. But if it's a small number of jobs and a massive inconvenience and a massive inefficiency, then why would you maintain that? And why would you especially maintain it when the only way it can be maintained is through this legal protection racket effectively that they've set up where they buy out politicians to get them to do stuff that they know almost none of their constituents. By the way, do you see Ron DeSantis campaigning on this? Do you see anyone campaigning on this?
And I agree with you on every aspect of what you're saying. I'm with you on all of that. I hate going to it, and it's definitely a cultural thing. Like some cultures are like super into like, yo, I want to charge you $1,000, and then the person walking goes like, oh, I'm gonna get you down to 90, and then that happens. Like that's just like a lot of American like waspy culture is like, I don't want to be inconvenienced by a conversation. Like they don't like it, and it's hilarious the difference. And like if you go to Turkey and you go to a bazaar, they have ones that haggle and they have other ones that say we don't haggle, and it's basically choose your own adventure. But I in this situation I agree with you. Like it's very hard to justify it. I would say it's frustrating. What I like about buying products online, and I could talk about this forever, and I'm sure you want to move on. But what I like about buying products online, it shows up, I don't like it, I send it back, and there's no fee. But like for a car, where do I send it if there's no dealership? If I don't like it, I want to touch it, I want to have it there. And then what'll end up happening is they'll give you that experience like you have at the Tesla dealership, but they put it in the mall so you can only sit in it and not drive it. And then you get it, and then it comes to your house, and you don't like it. You want to send it back. They're going to come pick it up. But now the dealership in the mall is the same exact experience as the dealership you would have if you went to go see Cal. For all the people who grew up here in Los Angeles,
I'm sure that you could find some comparisons. I don't think that we should leap to it's the exact same thing.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
I don't think so. Obviously, look, they're going to have showrooms or whatever. They're going to be places that are going to service the cars or whatever. But this has clearly been set up as just an artificial middleman who artificially inflates the price of the product and makes buying it more inconvenient.
And a devastating point you make about the Tesla thing, like that is absolutely a carve out for most favored nation status. Thank you to the people like Elon Musk and everything. And they'll never say anything like, well, it's better for the environment. They won't do that because they're right wingers and they can't. It's hilarious.
Although to that, there's one quote from the Dealer Network that we're gonna read in just a sec. But I will also say, I understand that like some people watching this might own a dealership or something or work at it, and I get it. It is jobs. Things change. By the way, like people have been making jokes about how utterly horrible the experience of going to a car dealer is since before I was watching TV to hear these jokes. Has it gotten better? Has it needed to get better when they have protections, legislative protections in multiple states ensuring that they have this position and that you have to go through them to buy this? Why would it get better at that point? Anyway, this bill, you'll be shocked to find out, was written by lobbyists for the Florida Automobile Dealers Association. They didn't initially want the Tesla and electric stuff to be in there, but other lobbyists got in, so that's cool. Lobbyists brawled and got what they wanted. Dave Rambo, who's a lobbyist for the FADA, the lobby we're talking about, says the attempt by auto manufacturers to cut out the dealer would only result in higher prices and less customer service to the public. How exactly that is the case, I have no idea. Certainly, he's not saying. Could it result in less customer service? Potentially, for some people. I will say that I still remember when I was at a Chevy dealership years ago, negotiating, because you have to, over the first electric car that I wanted to lease. And as we were going back and forth, he tried to throw in a fun perk of, I'll give you free oil changes for 3 years, which I found to be a novel perk for a car that doesn't need oil, can't take oil because it doesn't have an engine, because it's an electric car. I have to like teach him what his cars are at the dealership. Anyway, look, obviously there's some personal stuff in this, but a lot of people have had these experiences. I will also
his blood
say,
comes out his ears.
It's an electric car, you doink. How do you not understand that? Where are you gonna put the oil? Are you gonna pour it on the seats? Anyway, dealers have donated more than $2 million to Ron DeSantis in just the last 2 years. And by the way, we sometimes point out the money that politicians have gotten, and it isn't always such a huge sum of money that it's obviously gonna lead to a conflict of interest. But $2 million from as seemingly small a concern as dealerships in 2 years, $1 million a year, that is insane. They've also given nearly $250,000 to the Senate president in Florida, $50,000 to the state senator who sponsored the bill. I mean, it's just insane how much money is changing hands. No conservatives don't want this. They may hate electric cars or whatever, so that should anger them even more that electric cars are getting special treatment. But the only wonder here is, why haven't Ford and Chevy and all of them drowned out the money from these dealers? Anyway, it's frustrating to me. Let's move on though.
Yeah.
Final point.
There's a large capital investment in developing a competitive distribution model that they would have to do. In the US automotive dealership market size and share analysis from Mordor Intelligence, so take that for what you will, is $185 billion in 2018.
Okay, that's true. Good numbers supplied by the orcs, I think there. And by the way, not having this bill does not mean that you can't have dealers and that that the car manufacturers are the only people that can do it. All it means is that there's a choice that Chevy could set up a dealership. This is taking away that choice. It's saying you can't have both. You can only have the independent dealers.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.